A millionaire's amazing disguise shattered by 3 hidden words in his own restaurant. Jake Thompson stood at the narrow entrance of Grandpa's kitchen, the scent of sautéed onions and roasted chicken enveloping him like a misguided hug. His hands moved nervously over the worn butcher block as families trickled in, blissfully unaware that their laughter was built upon the brittle remnants of his past. 3 words, hidden beneath an old wooden table, had the power to shatter the fragile life he had rebuilt. Last will live. Could they really have found their way into public consciousness? What if they rekindled a scandal he thought lay dormant in the ashes of his ambition? Pressure gnawed at him, the shadows extending longer as the sun dipped behind the horizon. Jake's world felt precariously balanced. For every smile he served tonight, 1,000 doubts churned through his mind. The juxtaposition of his lively kitchen, filled with innocent chatter, against his turbulent internal landscape felt almost cruel. Did they know he had once vacillated between the boardroom and banquet hall? The choice between success and failure, wealth and obscurity, now played like a record on repeat in his mind. Could hard work alone truly forge a path back to prominence? The allure of it made him want to reach out, yet the fear pulsed in his veins, a reminder of all that had been lost. Just then, Sarah entered, her keen eye scanning the room like a hawk. She was a food blogger, and unbeknownst to her, a storm of introspection was brewing. Every click of her camera brought renewed scrutiny to his carefully carved-out sanctuary. It was as if she held a magnifying glass to his past. A single question hung between them. What would happen if she unraveled his story? Beneath his amiable facade, anxiety clawed at him. Who was he, really? Had he forged his own destiny, or was he merely playing the hand dealt to him by birthright? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The intensity of her gaze heightened his unease, uncertainty pressing down like a vice. What if she connected the dots? With each meal served, with every piece of bread that slid into the oven, she unknowingly chipped away at the barriers he had erected. "How did you get started?" she prodded one evening, her enthusiasm infectious yet suffocating. Jake hesitated, his mind racing through years of missteps and regrets. Would he abandon his safe story, the one wrapped to reveal the truth of his downfall? He thought of the mysterious letter that had arrived weeks ago, an invitation to reconnect with his estranged family. What shadowy legacy lay beneath? As the laughter echoed and the plates clattered, he felt exposed, teetering on the edge between acceptance and denial. What would happen if someone recognized him? The familiar weight of shame pressed against his chest, threatening to crush the fragile thread he clung to. A figure from his past passing through the door could break everything, a reminder that the truth is not something you can simply eradicate. The door swung wide open, the bell chiming innocently as Jake glanced up. Familiarity swelled in his chest, raging against the quiet facade he'd constructed. The moment he dreaded had arrived, and he was left wonderstruck in fear. This time, would he choose to confront the truth, or would he hide behind the carefully curated illusion he had come to accept? The air thickened with unresolved tension, the hidden words ringing eerily in his ears. Jake's heart raced as he scanned the room, instinctively backtracking in search of a familiar face, someone who could mean trouble. The early evening buzz turned into a deafening roar in his ears as the realization settled in. He had tried to outrun his ghosts, but they were right at the threshold, eager to slip into his present. When he spotted Sarah's focused demeanor, it sparked a latent fire of determination within him. If he couldn't control the details of his past or the haunting shadow of potential exposure, perhaps he could channel that tumult into the present. No one could take away the passion he poured into every ounce of food he created. Cooking had been his solace, a way to stitch together the frayed edges of his self-worth. With newfound resolve, Jake straightened his back and summoned a smile that erased the tremors creeping into his hands. "Tonight, it's all about the risotto," he declared, his voice steady as he approached Sarah. "You have to try it." The playful banter filled the air, a delicate dance between authenticity and performance. Meanwhile, his mind dissected the quandary of choice. Each moment woven into this simple interaction revealed more about him than he had anticipated. Risotto. Sarah's expression shifted from inquisitiveness to genuine intrigue. What makes it so special? Jake hesitated. Here was the moment, the point where he could share a piece of his story without exposing all of it. "It's a recipe from my grandfather," he started, deliberately leaning into nostalgia. "A man who taught me how to endure through flavors." As he spoke, he realized that he wasn't just talking about food, but also about resilience. But the comfort was fleeting, as his thoughts revisited the letter, that catalyst for long-buried fears. What would he gain through confronting his roots? Could they be a means of redemption, or merely a doubling down into his failures? In the back of his mind, he questioned if revealing aspects of his family's past would tether him to something greater or drag him into uncertainty. "Do you believe in second chances?" he ventured, looking directly at Sarah. It surprised him how quickly the question surfaced. Like a pebble dropped into a still pond, it rippled through his thoughts. The kitchen bustled around them, yet her response was slow to come, pregnant with potential insight. "I think they're necessary," she finally said, her voice softer, "but they come with choices and risks." Jake nodded, conscious of the shared moment, awakening a flicker of hope. Could he allow himself to embrace the chaos of his history while continuing to foster the bloom of his present? Perhaps there was power in vulnerability, the kind that could forge connections instead of severing them. As the conversation flowed, he felt the weight of pressure gradually lift. Every detail she noted became part of an evolving narrative, his narrative. He wasn't simply serving meals, he was serving himself, opening layers that had been carefully tucked away, like the ingredients he layered into his dishes. When the door swung open again, Jake instinctively turned, and clarity struck when he saw the unmistakable silhouette of his older brother. Jake's breath hitched, memories flooding his mind. The moment he dreaded and long awaited had arrived, not in the form of a past scandal, but a chance for confrontation and closure. Would he stand firm in a world he had begun to reconstruct? The fleeting taste of courage tasted bittersweet against the overwhelming tide of uncertainty washing over him. The time had come to face the truth and accept the paths he could choose, each leading to his development or demise. The question loomed large: would he take the leap? The clamor of the restaurant faded into the background as Jake locked eyes with his brother, Tom. A silence enveloped them, heavy with unspoken history and unresolved tension. Tom's arrival was like a grenade in the carefully curated space Jake had begun to build around himself. Suddenly, the risotto and lightness of conversation became trivial. Jake's heart raced again, but this time it was different. The pulse of anger surged alongside fear. They had been estranged for years, the frayed threads of their brotherhood unraveling under the weight of betrayal and distance. Tom's presence offered no comfort. Instead, it reignited memories that Jake had painstakingly tried to set aside. "Tom," Jake found himself uttering, the word tasting sour on his tongue. He felt torn between the strong urge to welcome him and a profound desire to push him away, like a ship fighting against a storm. How had it come to this? The questions tumbled in his mind, forcing him to confront everything he had avoided confronting since he took the plunge into culinary passion. "You're doing well," Tom observed, eyeing Jake's chef's jacket and the kitchen behind him. There was an unsettling smugness in his brother's tone that Jake didn't appreciate. It reminded him too much. Tom, always the favorite, always the one who could do no wrong, while he remained in his shadow, thought of as the family outcast. "Thanks," Jake replied curtly, measuring his words. This was not a moment he could afford to waste on pleasantries. He needed to dissect the motivations lurking beneath the surface. "What are you doing here?" Tom shrugged, feigning casualness. "Heard you were cooking tonight. Thought I'd drop by." Jake scrutinized him, searching for glimmers of genuine interest, yet all he saw was a facade. "You don't just drop by after years," he replied, voice harder than he intended. The tremor of vulnerability in the kitchen melted away, replaced with a steely determination. Why now? The silence stretched taut between them, holding secrets like a coiled spring ready to snap. Finally, Tom broke the impasse. "I want to help." The words hung heavy, a proposition Jake couldn't easily discard, yet instinctively they felt like a trap. "Help or meddle?" Jake shot back, unearthing the decades of betrayal hiding behind innocent intentions. Was this yet another convoluted attempt to insert himself back into Jake's life for his benefit, not Jake's? "Don't be like this," Tom said, an edge creeping into his voice. "I'm trying to cut through the past, and maybe we can get through it together." Jake wrestled with himself, grappling with the offer that dangled like a ripe fruit. The promise of a second chance shattered by layers of complexity. Disappointment seeded within hope, yet a sliver of curiosity threaded through his anger. Could he afford to venture into this uncertain territory with Tom? Was his brother even capable of change? The kitchen hummed with the rhythm of life, but all Jake could focus on was the confrontation looming like a dark cloud. His heart pounded, not only from fear, but from the tantalizing possibility of reclaiming what they had lost. "You have to be real with me if this is going to work," Jake finally said, summoning his courage. "What are you willing to lose?" Tom opened his mouth to answer, but Jake didn't wait for the words. Instead, he turned, re-engaging with his cooking as a shield against the unfolding drama. The light banter and simmering risotto offered safety, yet the tension between the brothers clung like the aroma of rich ingredients. As he stirred the pot and the grains absorbed the liquid, he thought about risks and choices. Would he let Tom into this new life he had crafted? Or would he make the choice to expel the toxicity of their past for good? Jake turned back, locking eyes with his brother once more, braced for answers that could redefine everything. The moment hung precariously, waiting for the truth to surface. What revelations would emerge from their confrontation, and who truly stood to gain from this renewed connection? As the weight of Tom's presence settled heavily on Jake's shoulders, he returned to the rhythm of chopping herbs, allowing the action to ground him. Each precise slice was a physical manifestation of his thoughts, deliberate yet anxious, sharp yet muddied. The kitchen buzzed around him, vitality in every sizzling pan and clattering dish, contrasting sharply with the tumult in his heart. After years of crafting his identity through food, he felt his carefully constructed world teetering. Who was he, really? A chef? A son? Did he want to extend an olive branch or set a blaze to the embers of their past? The herb's fresh aroma filled his senses, but he couldn't shake Tom's words from echoing in his mind, twisting with complexity. "Jake, let's just talk." Tom's voice broke through the clatter, a verbal puncture into the machinery of the kitchen. Jake turned, using the movement to mask the tightening in his chest. "You don't have to keep burning this bridge." "Burning? You think I want to keep the flames of our past alive?" Jake rebutted sharply, the kitchen's warmth mingling with the heat of his frustration. It felt cathartic to confront, but even as he spoke, he was aware of the fragile nature of this moment, a moment he could either forge into understanding or shatter entirely. "Maybe if we—" Tom began, but Jake cut him off. "No, Tom, Maybe if you had talked to me years ago, things would be different." A flicker of realization struck him. The real strength lay not just in his culinary skills, but in his newfound voice. He could stand tall, a far departure from the boy who had silently watched Tom reign supreme for so long. It was empowering, unsettling, yet liberating, a personal evolution. Tom took a step closer, vulnerability threading its way through his demeanor. "I should have reached out. It was just easier to stay away. I was scared, Jake, scared of owning up to the mess we made of things." Jake felt a mixture of emotions swirl within him: acknowledgement, anger, and the faintest hint of empathy. Hadn't he too been scared? The fear of revisiting old wounds had kept him from facing his brother, but he had no intention of skirting around the issues now. "Scared of what? You were the one who chose the path of betrayal," Jake fired back. "You wrecked what we had. Did you ever stop to think about what you were leaving in your wake?" "Yes, and I've regretted it ever since." Tom's admission rang true, stripped of bravado. "You became successful without me, Jake. You didn't need me, and that hurt more than I can express." The raw honesty pricked at Jake's heart, and for a split second he felt the urge to reconcile, to let go. But just as quickly the scars of their past tightened around him. Ghosts of failures and lost opportunities demanded acknowledgement. Their relationship had been fraught with envy, resentment, and crippling silence that had choked the possibility of true connection. As Jake continued to prepare meals, he found himself navigating an unexpected shift: his brother's cutthroat vulnerability dangled the keys to resolution. Yet Jake wasn't willing to unlock that door too easily. He needed clarity. "What do you want from me, Tom? This isn't merely about cooking together again. What's the goal? Rebuild? Or are you just looking for a way back into my life?" The question hung in the air, a bold challenge to Tom to reveal his intentions. Jake's heart thudded in response, knowing this choice would frame his next steps. "I want to fix this," Tom replied, sincerity etched in every syllable. "I want to earn back my place in your life." There was an earnestness in his voice that could either be the truth or another guise to manipulate. The back and forth had forged a mild understanding, yet the underlying disquiet in Jake's chest beat louder than his desire for reconciliation. Both he and Tom simmered with potential for healing, but also for further fracture. With the kitchen now echoing the sounds of simmering pots, the determination in Jake's heart grew stronger. He could feel the mountains of doubt giving way to a new foundation, one that could accommodate neither oblivion nor nostalgia. It could only support growth. Before he could think further, a crashing sound echoed from the storage room, his senses snapping to alarm. What chaos lay behind that door could very well be the next segment of this unfolding drama, where each revelation threatened the fragile balance Jake had fought to establish. The moment of truth loomed once more, intense and electric. Would history be repeated, or could he finally steer the course toward a new destiny with Tom? Jake's heart raced as he maneuvered through the maze of the kitchen, the clattering pots and sizzling pans fading into a muffled background of uncertainty. The crashing sound from the storage room reverberated like a thunderclap in his mind, throwing all his deliberations into disarray. What awaited him behind that door? "How did you manage to trip over nothing?" he muttered, directing his irritation at the untimely distraction. The kitchen staff paused, exchanging nervous glances, unsure now whether to focus on their craft or the unfolding drama. He felt the weight of their eyes upon him, while the immediacy of his confrontation with Tom lingered in the air, unresolved. Jake walked toward the door, his mind awash with a tempest of both fear and opportunity. The familiar dread of failure lurked just beneath the surface, but alongside it blossomed a form of determination. This moment could redefine everything. The essence of his cooking, the heart of his identity, churned relentlessly in his chest. Turning the handle, he braced himself for whatever chaos lay ahead. As he pushed the door open, the darkness of the storeroom flooded into the light, revealing a jumble of items strewn across the floor. A toppled stack of crates echoed the state of his emotions: disarray, confusion, and something ominous lurking just out of sight. In the hubbub, he spotted something glimmering beneath a crate, a small silver locket, half buried. "Seriously? A locket?" Jake muttered as he knee-padded down to retrieve it, his thoughts spiraling outward. He recognized it immediately. Hadn't it belonged to Tom's late partner? The very partner whose absence had left profound scars and shadows in Tom's life, and now, unbeknownst to him, in Jake's. In that instant, a realization struck. This simple object, seemingly mundane, carried with it the weight of memories and perhaps buried truths he wasn't ready to uncover. Questions wrestled within him. Why was this here? Had Tom been holding on to it longer than he had let on? Or was it more than just an echo of the past? Turning the locket over in his palm, Jake's thoughts raced along paths of fear and intrigue. In searching for clarity in his own life, had he dismissed the shadows of Tom's life entirely? This moment was a tipping point, a reminder that every wound ran deeper than it appeared. He stood on the cusp of a decision, one that would expand his understanding of both life and family. The kitchen assistant, Jenna, approached, her brow furrowed. "Did you find something?" she asked, eyeing the locket in Jake's hand. He hesitated, feeling the urge to confide in her, but the weight of these secrets felt too heavy for the uninitiated. "Just a relic," he said, forcing a half-smile, while his thoughts spiraled back to Tom's earlier admission of fear, lost connections, and regrets. Still on his knees, he grasped the locket tighter. How would he approach Tom now? His heart raced, eyes darting back to the open door, where the conversation still lingered unfinished in the air, heavy with unsaid words and silenced emotions. Was he ready to confront the reality that they both had been children of their circumstances, molded by events they never asked for? Or would he step back, bury this unexpected truth like so many others, letting the history continue to define them? In that moment of stillness, Jake resolved to create something more from the debris of their fractured world. Steeling himself with a sense of purpose, he stood, clenching the locket tightly. Before he could second-guess his decision, he headed back towards Tom, ready to face the turmoil, ready to demand clarity. This was it. The moment of reckoning was upon him. Each step toward Tom was a step toward understanding, disarming the turbulent fear wrapped around his heart. "It's time," he whispered to himself. As he crossed into the narrow hallway, prepared to bridge the chasm between them, Jake couldn't shake the ominous thrumming of fate. Would what lay ahead be a new beginning, or yet another chapter tainted by hesitation and silence? The door beckoned once more, just like the hidden knowledge buried in his hand. And as he approached Tom, ready to dive deeper into that past, he felt an electrifying urge to reveal this newfound discovery. Would voicing the hidden story, revealing the pieces of their history, unlock the potential for growth, or seal their fate under layers of unspoken anger once and for all? Jake stepped into the hallway, the locket clutched in his palm, feeling the cool metal press into his skin. He couldn't ignore the transformative nature of this moment. Each step toward Tom felt like a step toward a precipice, a leap into the deep uncertainty that had long been entangled in his and Tom's lives. They needed to confront the shadows that had plagued both of them for too long. As he neared the small office where Tom often retreated, Jake's heart pounded harder. The air was saturated with an anxious energy that felt almost tangible. Was this confrontation an attempt at reconciliation, or a reckless pursuit of painful truths? The question gnawed at him, but the locket reminded him that love was often intertwined with loss. He reached the door and hesitated. What if Tom reacted with anger or defensiveness? In Jake's mind, the alternative train of thought persisted. Aligning the vulnerability he shared with Tom's pain might reveal a deeper connection. Taking a breath, he knocked lightly and pushed the door ajar. Tom sat behind a cluttered desk, his face etched with worry. The intensity in Tom's eyes spoke of unexamined grief, threads of a complicated past woven tightly around his heart. Jake caught a glimpse of vulnerability that, until now, he hadn't recognized. "Jake," Tom said, voice strained, "what's going on?" Jake stepped inside, holding up the locket. "I found this," he began, watching for any flicker of recognition on Tom's face. "It was in the storeroom." Tom's gaze dropped to the locket, eyes narrowing as memories flickered behind them. "That belonged to—" He paused, voice trailing off with the weight of unresolved emotions. "Your partner," Jake finished for him. "Why was it in the storeroom, Tom?" Jake realized that merely asking the question put him in a perilous position, exposing vulnerabilities he had long avoided. Yet he pressed on, the urgency to connect overriding his instinct to withdraw. Tom rubbed his forehead, frustration evident. "I don't know, Jake. I thought I had put it away," he whispered, trying to regain control of his emotions. "It was just something I kept hidden. It's painful to look at." Jake felt the sharp sting of empathy wash over him. "You can't keep burying it," he said, forcing the words to surface. "We can't keep pretending everything is fine. I can't. It's suffocating." For a fleeting moment, fear painted across Tom's face. "You think it's all about me? You think I'm the one who's pretending?" The accusation in Tom's tone felt like a jab, but Jake understood the underlying fear. He had been just as skilled in deflection. The silence hung heavy between them. The locket became more than just an object. It symbolized their shared wounds and the stories left untold. It was the thread weaving their experiences, connecting two disparate lives battling their emotional turmoil. "Tom," Jake began again, heart racing with determination, "what if we faced this together? What if we stopped hiding behind our pain?" In that moment, a flicker of hope sparked in Tom's irises. "You really want that?" he asked, barely a whisper. Jake nodded, feeling a simultaneous surge of fear and clarity. "I want to understand us, where we've been and where we're going." Tom leaned back, the walls around his heart trembling. The latent possibility of healing was buried beneath layers of insecurity and fear, but this conversation could excavate what had long lain dormant. In the stillness that followed, Jake felt the inevitability of a path unfolding ahead. Would they each risk their hearts to discover what had been obscured by hurt? The decision hung palpably in the air, heavy with the promise of transformation or destruction. What lay ahead was still uncertain, but Jake was prepared to take that leap into vulnerability. Would this be the moment that liberated them both, or a misstep into conflict that could fracture their fragile connection? With the locket as a mediator, he was ready to find out, driven by a resolute need for healing and reconciliation. And in his next breath, a thought crystallized. Was he truly ready to uncover the depths of his own pain alongside Tom? Jake stood frozen, the air vibrating with unspoken words and unacknowledged fears. The locket weighed heavily in his hand, its significance now bursting beyond mere sentimental value. It had transformed into a catalyst, forcing both of them to acknowledge their pasts steeped in loss, regret, and unuttered confessions. What had started as a search for collaboration had morphed into a confrontation of mutual darkness. A wave of determination surged within him, pushing past the trepidation that rooted him in place. He refused to let this moment slip away, just as he had so often done in the past when faced with uncomfortable truths. "Tom," he began, his voice steadier than he felt, "you have to trust me. I won't walk away. Whatever is buried, let's dig it up together." Tom's gaze darted away, his fingers drumming anxiously against the desk. Jake could almost see the gears turning in Tom's mind, battling between the instinct to protect himself and the instinct to allow someone else in. It mirrored Jake's own internal struggle, a wrestling match between the familiar comfort of silence and the raw, chaotic beauty of vulnerability. "I'm not sure that's possible," Tom said finally, the honesty of his admission hanging in the air like dense fog. "What if I can't open up? What if it just muddies the water even more?"
Jake's heart plunged at the thought. Could they really just remain entrenched in their pasts, too scared to break the surface? But what if it doesn't? Jake countered. What if understanding each other brings clarity? What if it opens up pathways we didn't even know existed? Instead of responding, Tom let out a deep sigh, staring at the locket with an expression that betrayed a fracture in his resolve. It was a flicker of something hopeful, a willingness
to engage that hadn't been there moments before. Could fear really give way to something transformative? Jake chose this moment to slide the locket across the desk. This can stay hidden, or we can remember together. You lost him, and I'll never understand the depth of that hurt, but I want to stand beside you as you confront it. I can't carry the weight of it alone. Tom's eyes softened, yet the tension remained palpable. He needed this moment of connection, but confronting his grief felt impossible. The reality was that they both stood on precarious ground, bracing against their fears while yearning for something greater. "What if I say I'm willing to try?" Tom asked, the tremor in his voice unmistakable. "What if that's just not enough?" "Then we'll navigate that too," Jake replied, emboldened by the flicker of acceptance that sprang from Tom's uncertainty. "Let's find out together if it's enough, if we're enough." The heaviness began to lift, subtle yet profound. Cast into the light of cooperation, old wounds started to lose the power they held. This was a crucial juncture, a potential pivot point for both their lives. Jake's mind was racing, processing the depths of what facing their pain together could look like. It was one thing to approach vulnerability verbally, but another to translate that into tangible actions. How would they share their burdens and dismantle the walls that had imprisoned them for so long? "Maybe," Tom started slowly, his courage renewing as he spoke, "maybe it's time to confront the truth about my partner and my own heart in the aftermath." Jake's breath hitched at Tom's admission, feeling the weight of candor take root. The moment felt monumental, laying the groundwork for an unfolding narrative that promised transformation. "This could be the turning point, Tom. We have to be honest with each other, really honest. If we can do that, we might redefine enough." Tom nodded, accepting the challenge. There was a profound sense of fear coursing through Jake's veins, fear of both failure and potential success. Yet, standing there, they were on the brink of something remarkable. With renewed focus, Jake steeled himself for the discussions ahead. He knew that self-discovery would be inextricably linked to the unearthing of their shared pasts. But just as the moment began to settle in, a thought intruded painfully. What if they unearthed secrets that shattered the foundation of everything they built together? Fear gnawed at him again. "What if I discover something I'm not ready to handle?" he thought. With that thought clinging to the forefront, he braced himself, ready to breach the intricacies of Tom's grief and his own. The next step felt inevitable, and with it the question loomed large. What truths remained buried, and would they bind them together or tear them apart? Jake felt the gravity of the moment. The air was thick with possibilities and the weight of the past. The locket lay between them, a silent witness to the rising tension and the potential for
change. What was once a token of grief now served as a reminder of an unexpected alliance, a shared journey waiting to unravel. "Okay," Tom finally breathed, the word almost a whisper, but laden with significance. "If I'm going to try, I need you to understand just how deep this goes. It's not merely about remembering, it's about reliving." His words unfolded like a heavy curtain dragging across the floor, revealing the haunting shadows that had clung to him for far too long. Jake's heart raced, every thought crystallizing into focused determination. Reliving meant confronting, the bittersweet experience of wrestling the past into the light of acceptance. "I'm here for whatever you need to share," he responded, his voice steadier now. "But we need to set an intention. We can guide each other." Tom ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of unease that mirrored the turmoil within. "I haven't even faced it myself," he admitted, shame flickering in his eyes. Every time I think about it, I feel like I'm drowning. What if we dig up something I can't handle either? That's the risk we take, Jake shot back, the urgency of the moment lighting a fire within him. But listen, we've both gotten so used to running from our feelings, haven't we? What if we could turn that vulnerability into our strength instead? Tom's biting gaze fixated on Jake, as if trying to examine the truth within those words. A storm passed behind his eyes, a blend of anger and sorrow. "You don't really know what you're asking me to do," he said, wrestling with his fears. "What if this collaboration becomes a battleground? What if we end up hating each other for what we uncover?" Jake paused. He could see that there was a part of Tom that feared confrontation, yet he also sensed a flicker of hope, a desire for healing lurking beneath the surface. But what if we find something that allows us to forgive ourselves? Isn't it worth pursuing for the sake of our futures? He leaned in slightly, his sincerity palpable, and it felt as though the room had shrunk under the weight of shared apprehension. "That sounds like a fairy tale, Jake," Tom scoffed, but the edge in his voice began to soften. "People get hurt when they dig too deep." "True," Jake acknowledged, choosing his words with care. "But pain is part of growth. Allowing our stories to intertwine could help us evolve. Maybe we're both more capable than we believe in navigating what we find." With that, Jake felt a shift. It was as if the walls around Tom were beginning to buckle against the prospect of connection. Tom drew a deep breath, the enormity of their conversation washing over him. "I can't promise anything more than my willingness to explore," he finally said, his voice steadying. "But I need to start somewhere." It was a fragile admission, yet it resonated like a clarion call in the silence that followed. "Let's create a
safe space," Jake proposed, feeling the adrenaline of shared vulnerability. "We will take turns guiding the dialogues. One story, one truth at a time, and we'll learn to navigate it side by side." The prospect hung in the air, and Tom's eyes flickered with a hint of something Jake recognized, courage perhaps. "And if it gets messy," he asked, still cautious but willing to consider the possibilities. "Then we will be messy together," Jake replied, conviction solidifying in his heart. "But we won't do it alone." As Tom absorbed the gravity of that offer, Jake could sense a profound shift taking root between them. Their discussion had transformed from one of fear into a commitment to confront the past, an agreement that they would no longer face their demons in isolation. Yet, as the conversation drifted into the territory of their shared resolve, Jake felt an unsettling notion emerge. What if their attempts at understanding opened a Pandora's box of greater pain? What if their newfound commitment ended up revealing chasms wider than they ever imagined existing between them? His resolve flickered slightly, uncertainty creeping back into his thoughts. What precisely would they unearth in this journey? With the locket and all its memories casting long shadows, Jake wondered if they might be drawn perilously close to truths that could change everything. "Maybe it's not just about our pasts," he pondered aloud, the words spilling forth before he could filter them. "What if we're about to uncover who we really are, or maybe even who we were meant to be?" As he contemplated these implications, with each heartbeat, the weight of silence returned, a reminder that the work ahead would demand more than mere willingness. It would require their absolute commitment. With Tom's guarded expression lingering, Jake knew that tomorrow would not simply be a continuation. It would be the moment they truly laid bare their souls. The next chapter of their lives awaited, thick with uncertainty and yet tantalizingly full of potential. Stepping forward, Jake took a deep breath, knowing that together they were about to embark on a journey of profound discovery, one that could either strengthen their bonds or leave them irrevocably altered. What awaited them, he questioned, in the depths of their own intertwined stories? As dawn broke, casting a pale light over the city, Jake sat at his kitchen table, the locket a constant reminder of the weighty pact he had made with Tom. The morning silence was broken only by the sound of his coffee brewing,
each drip like a countdown to the inevitable exploration of their shared pasts. He felt a mixture of excitement and dread. The anticipation of learning more about Tom and himself was tantalizing, yet the idea of unearthing buried traumas loomed like a storm cloud on the horizon. With each sip, Jake's thoughts raced. What pieces of his own life were still hidden, tucked away like the locket's secrets? He didn't just want to support Tom, he needed to challenge himself.
Insights into his own unresolved pain, his struggles with guilt and resentment about choices he made long ago. Would confronting those memories provide clarity or simply leave him more fragmented? Decision made. He grabbed a notebook and a pen, flipping to a blank page. He scrawled, "Intentions for our explorations." Underneath, he listed points: mutual respect, unconditional support, absolute honesty, and healing through truth. Each word resonated deeply, laying the groundwork for their dialogue. Tom would arrive soon, and as Jake put the kettle on, he felt a surge of adrenaline. This was more than just a conversation. It felt like a ritual, perhaps the catalyst for transformation. They were on the verge of something profound. Taking a deep breath, he considered how their first sharing would unfold. What stories would emerge, and how would they navigate the delicate fabric of memories interlaced with pain? The doorbell rang, and Jake opened the door to find Tom looking vulnerable yet resolute. He wore an expression that mirrored Jake's own, the uncertainty of stepping into the unknown paired with the flicker of hope for catharsis. "Ready?" Jake asked, and Tom nodded, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. "Let's go for a walk. We can find somewhere quiet." They stepped out into the cool morning air, the world bustling with life, a stark contrast to the silence they were about to delve into within themselves. As they wandered through the park, Jake felt the tension ebbing from his body. "Where do we begin?" Tom asked, his hands shoved into his pockets, insecurity clouding his voice. "I think maybe we start with the hardest part," Jake suggested. "What weighs on you the most?" Tom hesitated, his gaze fixed on the ground, as if the answer lay embedded in the concrete. Finally, he spoke, his voice just above a whisper. "It's my brother. We had a fallout years ago. I never really got to tell him how sorry I am, how much I wished I could turn back time." Jake struggled to keep his breath steady. Tom's words struck chords deep within him. He realized they were probing not just Tom's pain, but echoes of his own, relationships left untended, words unspoken. "What happened?" Jake prompted, the wound exposed now, and Tom's gaze flickered with shame. "He was always the golden child, and I just went off the rails. I never thought he'd cut me off for it, but he did, and the void he left was unbearable." A silence enveloped them, thick and heavy. Jake contemplated the threads of envy and regret woven through Tom's confession. "What would you want to say to him?" "I'd want to say that I own my faults, that I've grown, but I fear he won't believe me." In that moment, Jake felt a surge of determination rise within him. "Then we'll explore how you can prove it. This isn't just about healing old wounds, it's about changing who we are moving forward." It struck him, an idea took shape. Vibrant and urgent, pulling him from the abyss of uncertainty. What if Tom needed more than apologies? What if action was the key to his brother's forgiveness? They continued walking, engaged in thoughtful discourse about second chances and rebuilding fractured ties. Each revelation spun the fabric of their conversation tighter, stitching together their disparate narratives. Yet beneath the surface lay shadows of deeper questions waiting to be uncovered. But as their discussions intensified, Jake felt an unsettling tremor rise within him. He had veered into the personal terrain of someone he barely understood. What if he misstepped, triggered a wound better left untouched? The pressure mounted as he sensed the potential for conflict simmering just below the surface. Empowered by vulnerability, Tom turned to him, his eyes searching Jake's for something, maybe reassurance. "That was powerful," he commented, absorbing the weight of their dialogues. "But what if we dig too deeply? What if I shake loose something I can't handle?"
Jake paused, caught between reassurance and anxiety. Tom was standing at the brink of rediscovering himself, yet the reality was they might unearth a truth that neither could escape, a truth that could alter their relationship forever. "What if we both do?" Jake posed, his voice steady yet tinged with uncertainty. "It's about facing those fears and learning to hold space for them. This can be a beginning, or it could tear us apart. What are you willing to risk?" As Tom wrestled with that question, Jake felt the weight of impending change thick in the air. They had opened the door to a daunting exploration, one that could reshape their identities or leave them yearning for a fresh start. What awaited them on this path, and would they be able to confront their demons and emerge stronger together? In that moment, everything was at stake, the past thrumming like a live wire, promising revelations both liberating and terrifying. In the suffocating silence that followed, Jake took a deep breath, his resolve crystallizing into steely determination. "Tom, we'll face whatever comes next together. This isn't just about confronting your brother, it's a chance to transform your story." Tom met his gaze, vulnerability laced with determination shimmering in his eyes. "I want that too, but I need to be honest about my fear. What if opening those doors leads us all the way back to hurt we can't bear?" "That's possible," Jake acknowledged, aware of the weight behind each man's journey. "But there's also the possibility of healing, clarity, and even rebuilding connections that matter. We owe it to ourselves to explore both avenues." He felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was more than an exercise in vulnerability. It was a commitment to transformation. "Let's take it step by step," Jake suggested. "You lead with something weighing on your heart, and we'll explore it. Once we have a little distance, we can reflect on it together." With that framework in place, a flicker of optimism sparked in Tom's demeanor.
"Okay, then I'll start. I think my brother and I were always competing for Dad's affection. Every misstep, every choice that felt wrong, pushed us farther apart." Jake sensed a tangible shift. The conversation was no longer a daunting abyss. It was a bridge, something they could traverse together. "I understand that," Jake replied gently. "That feeling of always being in someone else's shadow, it leaves scars. But it can also forge resilience. My relationship with my brother was riddled with competition too. Yet in our struggles, I learned to fight back. Growth emerged from that fire." Tom considered this, shifting slightly. "It just felt like I kept sinking while he soared. I couldn't find my way out. Maybe pushing him away was just a misguided way to cope." "So you were both shaped by your circumstances," Jake prompted, finding parallels in their respective histories. "The question is, how do you redefine your relationship moving forward?" "I could try to reach out, to rebuild, but that's terrifying," Tom admitted, stark honesty in his voice. "What if he rejects me again?" "Then it's not a reflection of your growth," Jake responded. "Rejection is a cruel reality, but you owe it to yourself to try. You could also support him in his own journey. Healing doesn't always mean reconciling. Sometimes it's about finding contentment in the journey regardless of others' responses." Tom seemed lost in thought, and Jake could see the gears in his head turning. "You're right about that," he eventually said, his voice steadier. "But how? How do I show him I've transformed?" Jake leaned in. "By demonstrating your commitment to change. It starts small. Every step you take reinforces your intentions. If you truly want to make amends, show him through your actions. And accept that real connections come with risks." Teetering on the edge of profound transformation, Tom nodded slowly. "Accepting the risk, that's the key, isn't it?" "It is," Jake confirmed, feeling exhilaration swell. "And it's the same for both of us. We dig deeper to self-examine, not just for our histories, to forge stronger futures.
As the sun rose higher, casting its steady warmth over them, Jake felt a surge of determination. He realized he was not merely supporting Tom. This journey, too, was one of self-discovery. He could no longer afford to hide behind the kitchen walls, nor could he mask the shame of choices he once made. In those moments of conversation, it became clear. They were both standing at critical junctures, and the choices they made in the present could guide their destinies. "Let's promise to hold ourselves accountable during this process," Jake proposed. "We have to be honest, not just about what we want to uncover, but also about our fears and struggles. And when it gets tough, we'll lean on each other." "I agree," Tom replied, the weight of their pact settling into the air. "This can't be just a casual undertaking. We owe it to ourselves to see it through, to embrace not just the potential for growth, but the real conversations that will lead us there. Starting today," Jake added resolutely, "we embark on this journey of mutual exploration. We'll address our fears and lift each other out of the darkness. It's about holding space, not just for the good, but for the storms too." And so, a newfound partnership crystallized as they walked, the conversations never quite wrapping around a neat bow, but existing in the complexities of human experience. Each raw moment propelled them forward, equipping them with the tools to face the next challenge. With every shared story and look into the depths of their vulnerability, Jake felt a profound change within himself. No longer was he a chef merely serving plates. He was a man unearthing potential from the roots of his past, deeply intertwined with Tom's journey. In honor of that growth, Jake decided to take concrete steps to nurture his own resilience. He planned to reach out to his brother, too. The act of vulnerability was a two-way street, and he owed it to himself to mend his own fractures. So as they walked into the dawn of a new day, armed with the unspoken promise of accountability, Jake realized they were not just transforming their individual stories. They were creating a narrative forged in resilience and hope, ready to embrace the beauty of revelation. Tomorrow would arrive with its own challenges, laden with history. Yet together, Jake and Tom would navigate their intertwined journeys one truth at a time. If you believe in the capacity for transformation through shared journey, now is the time to act. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every like empowers the content. Comment your reactions and theories about this powerful ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to engage with this vital journey.